So far, all of the examples of arrays that we've looked at in this lesson have been simple int arrays, and we've been processing those arrays in just static main methods of our classes. We're now going to get back to a little bit of object-oriented programming, and in particular, we're going to have a card shuffling and dealing simulation. And in the card shuffling and dealing simulation, we're going to have three classes that make up our application, our app in this case. As you can see in the Solution Explorer here, we have a class called Card, a class called Deck of Cards, and a class called Deck of Cards Test. The test program is going to contain the main method that drives the app, and the other two classes will be used together to form a deck of cards and then allow us to shuffle that deck and deal the individual cards. So this might be the foundation of a card playing program, for example. Now, up on the screen at the moment is the first class in the app, the card class. And as you can see, our card class is relatively straightforward. It contains two private instance variables of type string, face and suit. And these are going to represent the faces from ace through king, and the suits, hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades, etc. And eventually we'll get to the point of creating an array of 52 of these to represent the deck of cards. Now, our class's constructor allows us to initialize the face and suit for a particular card. We receive two strings representing the face and the suit, and we simply assign them to our instance variables. And for the first time, we have a toString method in our class. Now, it turns out that every single class you create is not created from scratch, but rather is built on an existing class in the .NET Framework class library. If you don't explicitly say which class to build a new one on top of, that's called inheriting from an existing class, then the compiler automatically gives you all of the features of the class called object in the system namespace. And we'll talk about that more a couple of lessons from here when we get into object-oriented programming in more detail with our classes, a deeper look lesson, our inheritance lesson, and our polymorphism lesson as well. Now, one of the key features of class object that every class has is a toString method. Every single object of every single class has the ability to be converted into a string representation via a call to the toString method. And the first line of that method must appear as shown here on line 16. The override keyword we'll get into in more detail when we go and talk about the inheritance lesson. For now, if you're going to define your own toString method, you'll simply want to mimic the first line that you see here. As you can see, toString has a capital T and a capital S in its name. It has no parameters, and it returns a string representation of an object. Now, in the case of class object, the default implementation of toString just gives you back a text representation, but generally it's not a useful text representation. So almost every class really should define a toString method so that you can produce for the caller a useful string of information. Even if that string is just a string representation of all of the data inside of an object that might be used for error message logging purposes, it's considered a good practice to provide such a method to help users of your class. And in the case of our card class, we're going to use it to produce the actual card in a text representation that includes the word representing the face, the string of, and the word representing the suit. So that's our entire card class, and we'll see how we use the toString method in our main program momentarily. So let's take a look at our Deck of Cards class, and this is going to be using objects of our class card that we just created. Now, because all three of these classes are in the same project, they all know about one another already. So it's okay for class Deck of Cards to create an array of cards, in our case called Deck, because both classes are part of the same project, which makes them part of the same default namespace. Any classes within a given namespace know about one another already and can use each other directly. Now remember, line 7 here, which is declaring Deck as an instance variable of the class called Deck of Cards, does not create the array of cards. It's only declaring that array. So initially, the variable deck is going to have the value null, and we have to assign it a new array of cards of the appropriate number of elements. We also have an integer that's private called current card, which we'll use for helping us deal the cards in the card array. There will be 52 cards in the array, 4 suits of 13 cards each, and therefore the int current card will represent the values in our program 0 through 51, the indices in the card array. We also have a private const integer called number of cards, which is set to 52, and that's so that we don't use a magic number of 52 for the size of the array, the number of cards in the array. And then finally, we have a random object called random numbers that we'll be creating in the constructor for class deck of cards. Now, the constructor that we're defining here at lines 13 through 27 is a no argument constructor that's going to be called from the main method of our deck of cards test class, and we'll take a look at that momentarily. Within the constructor, we declare 2 arrays of strings, faces and suits, and we initialize them with the strings that represent the names of the card faces and the strings that represent the names of the card suits, respectively. So we have a 13-element array of strings called faces and a 4-element array of strings called suits, and we're going to use the strings in these 2 arrays in this for loop at the end of the constructor to populate the card objects in the array. Now, line 19 creates the array of cards with 52 elements, number of cards elements. And again, if I hover over a given variable at design time or code editing time, you can see the type of that variable. In this case, it says it's an integer in the class deck of cards called number of cards. If I'm at runtime and I hover over that, it will show me the value of the variable 52 in the debugger. Now, remember, line 19 is not creating card objects. What it's creating are variables that can refer to card objects, and the default value for each of those variables is lowercase null, the null keyword that's built into C#. So this just creates the array. We still have to populate the array with actual card objects. Line 20 initializes current card to 0, which, by the way, is the default value for an integer that's declared as an instance variable and that's not initialized. Line 21 creates the random numbers object as a new random object. And then lines 24 through 26 iterate through all the elements of the deck array, starting from index 0 as long as we're less than the deck's length. And for every element of the array, we assign to that particular element, that particular variable, a new card object that is going to be initialized with the results of the 2 highlighted expressions. Faces sub count %13 says divide count by 13 and give me the remainder after the integer division, and that's always going to be a number from 0 through 12, which is exactly the set of index values for the 13-element array faces. And when you divide count by 13 using the division operator, suits sub count divided by 13, count divided by 13 in that case will always result in an integer value, and if the value of count is 0 through 12, the value of the expression here is going to be 0, so we would pick off suits sub 0. For the next 13 cards, we'd pick off suits sub 1. For the next 13 cards, suits sub 2. And for the last 13 cards, suits sub 3, which would be the string spades in that case. So the % sign is allowing us to keep iterating from 0 through 12 for each set of 13 cards within the array, and the count divided by 13 is allowing us to iterate 0, 1, 2, or 3 for the first 13 cards, the second 13 cards, the third 13 cards, or the fourth 13 cards in that array. So now we have our array of card objects, and I'll run the program in the debugger so that you can see what that looks like. In fact, let's go do that right now. We'll go ahead and set a breakpoint on line 27 so that right after the array is populated, we can see the contents of the array. So if I hit start, you see that it's waiting for me to finish the method, and inside of here we can see this, which corresponds to the current object of class deck of cards that we're manipulating. And if I expand this, you can see that there's an instance variable called deck Notice the little lock symbol on the icon here. That indicates that it's a private instance variable. And if I expand that, you can see by scrolling through here that there are 52 total elements. 0 through 51 are their index numbers. And for every one of the elements, even the debugger is using the toString method for each element to show you the content of that element. So this is actually the inside of the curly braces here is the actual toString representation of that card. And if I expand a given card, I can see its individual face and suit string members. So that just shows you that we were able to populate the array with the 52 cards. Now we also provided a couple of other methods, a shuffle method which returns void and simply shuffles the deck of cards, and then finally a deal card method that's going to return a reference to a particular card or null if we've already dealt all the cards in the deck. So if I go back to my shuffle method, we can see that we start with current card equal to 0, and we use a simplistic shuffling algorithm in this case. What we're going to do is iterate through all the elements in the array called deck, and for the current element, we're going to pick a second index number someplace else in the array, and then we're going to exchange the two elements at those two positions. So the counter first is going to go from 0 through 51. We'll pick a random number from 0 to 51 for the second index, and then we'll store temporarily the card at the first index. We'll replace the card at the first index with the card at the second index, and then we'll replace the card at the second index with the card temp that was stored back on line 42. And then finally, we have our deal card algorithm, which simply checks current card to see if it's equal to 0, if it's less than, the deck's length. Initially, it'll be 0 for the first card, and then it'll be incremented each time. And assuming we're less than the length of the deck, we will return the expression deck sub current card plus plus. That says use current card's value, then increment it. So we use the current value to index into the deck array and increment it after we use the current value of that index variable, that counter variable, so that it's incremented to aim at the next element in the deck for the next time the deal card method gets called. So far we've looked at the card class that represents one card at a time. We've looked at the deck of cards class, which maintains 52 card objects that are referenced from a deck array that's an instance variable of the deck of cards class. And now we have our simple little main method. In line 10, we create an object of class deck of cards, which we're calling my deck of cards. New deck of cards with the empty parentheses is going to create the object and initialize it by calling the default constructor of class deck of cards. We then tell the deck to shuffle, and that's going to reset the card counter within the deck to 0 so that we can start dealing from the top of the deck once again. And at lines 14 through 20, we have a little for loop that's counting 52 times, and for each iteration of the loop is going to display one card left justified, in a field of 19 characters. Notice the negative number preceding the field width. That causes us to get a left justified value. Now, what we're actually outputting here is the result of my deck of cards dot deal card. If I hover over deal card, you can see that it returns a card object, which I'm then displaying in this position placeholder within my format control string. Now, it's going to be displayed as a string. So what actually happens here is this object that gets returned, which is one card in my deck of cards, is going to have an implicit call to toString on it. That's going to return the string representation of that one card. That string representation will be placed into the placeholder and then displayed with console.write. After I've displayed 4 of them, I'll then move to the next line so I can display 4 more items. And again, if I run this program, you can see the string representations, and you can see that each column is left justified. So the maximum string length of all of these strings that you see here looks like it's about 17 characters long, and by putting them into fields of 19, we're able to get at least a little bit of spacing between our columns. So even though you don't explicitly see it happening here, what's really going on is as if I had written .toString at the end here. And it's not uncommon to see these kind of chained method calls in C#. My deck of cards, if I hover over it, I can see it's a deck of cards object. On a deck of cards object, I can call deal card to get one card, and then the value of this highlighted expression to the left of the next dot is going to be one card object, and a card object has a toString method that gives us the string representation of a given card. And you can see as I hover over toString here, the tooltip is telling me that it's calling the toString method of class card in this case. So every type of object in C# has the potential to be turned into an array, a string representation by calling the toString method on that object. And in fact, you can even do that on an array as well, because an array itself is an object. And there is a string representation for arrays that will simply display, or give back, I should say, the string representation of the individual elements within a given array.